Welcome to Driven to Draw. My name is Arvind Ramkrishna, and this is episode 3. And we're going to be talking about how to build your confidence in drawing. So let's go. So the first part of the discussion about building your confidence in drawing is to really understand what is building confidence in general. What does that even mean? How do you build confidence? And building your confidence is really broken down into a couple things. That is, one, trying to understand what your goals are and what it is that you're trying to master, what you're trying to improve. And that sort of comes down to self-efficacy, a sense of self-efficacy, which is trying to make sure that whatever it is that you're working on, that you gain respect in a particular area or a field. So if you are a designer and you want to go into automotive design, you want to make sure that the skills that you start to acquire during school is something that is respected by the industry, that you have developed a skill and a technique and an expertise that's going to be utilized. So it's one of those things that as you build up your portfolio and you build up your skill sets, you're really looking for a confirmation from other people in the industry that validate the fact that what you have done is correct. So that is kind of tying in the professional standpoint. And then you have things like just general self-esteem, which is really about how do you feel about yourself. As human beings, we feel it's very normal for you to feel good about yourself when you get confirmation from other people, whether it be your friends, your family, other people in the professional working environment. When they have confidence in you, that also kind of builds your confidence in the way you feel about yourself. So in order to really understand how this relates to drawing, you have to still understand what being self-confident means. From the standpoint of defining self-confidence and what it feels like to be confident. And one of the main things, there's several attributes for being confident. And one of the main attributes for having a high self-esteem and high self-confidence is believing that, one, the things that you are doing is correct. That you are not going to be governed by what other people think. You're not going to be making decisions based upon what other people think of you. That you have a strong enough mindset to believe that what you are doing is the right thing. The second thing is to understand that you're going to make mistakes along the way. And that it's okay to make mistakes, because at the end of the day, that's really the only way to grow. You're not going to know everything, and you don't know what you don't know. And as you stumble upon mistakes and you overcome those mistakes, that in turn builds your confidence because you build some knowledge as a result of it. Another key characteristic of being confident is not staying within your comfort zone. That you're kind of willing to get out there and take some risks and see what happens, or at least take risks in the fact that you're willing to learn, like I said previously, from your mistakes. Anytime that you stay in your comfort zone, that any kind of discomfort that you have, and that could even be learning something new, because when you learn something new, you don't know enough about that information. And when you don't know enough about that information, then that also kind of leads to a lack of self-confidence. So let's just summarize what I said about being self-confident. And the first thing we said was believing the fact that you are, or believing or having the feeling that you are correct. That the decisions you're making are your own, and they're your own based upon what you feel and what you have experienced in the past, and you know that what you're doing is the correct thing. The second thing I said was being able to admit or at least experience mistakes, because the only way to grow is to learn from your mistakes. And then thirdly was making sure that you're taking risks, that you're not really in your comfort zone, that you're willing to get out there and try something different and try something new. And you're not afraid of failing. And everybody, by the way, is afraid of failing. It's really being able to acquire that mindset to say, you know what, so what if I fail? If I fail at this, what's the worst thing that can happen? And a lot of people say this a lot of time, and it is very true. Nothing is going to happen if you fail. what will happen if you don't try is that you may not recognize, or you may be, or give up on something that you could have potentially have been very good at. And you don't want that to happen. Some of the other, now, the opposite is being overconfident. You don't want to be so overconfident that you're very cocky, that you're not able to take a good compliment or to be able to thank other people when they're paying you a compliment. You got to be gracious. You have to learn a proper etiquette and understand that being cocky is not going to get you anywhere either. Well, hopefully most of the time it doesn't get you anywhere. I mean, I've seen a lot of cocky people and somehow they seem to be doing pretty good. But in general, I just feel that in order to be respected, it's always a good thing to have respect for other people. It's a good thing to be able to accept compliments and to be able to accept them graciously and so forth. Now let's talk about the sketching part. Now this is what happens. What happens when you typically want to learn something that takes a lot of time to learn? The first thing that you do is that you compare yourself to the other person. You look at someone else's drawing and you say, you know what, I want to be able to draw exactly like that. And you look at it, you gaze upon it, and you keep looking at that guy's work, and you go page after page after page. And what happens as you do that is that as you're going through the pages of their work or their portfolio, you start to develop an inferiority complex. And you start to look at it, and all of a sudden, as you look at the work, you realize that, my goodness, there is just absolutely no way I'm going to be able to sketch or draw this good. There's just no way. And let me tell you a story, because I think this is really important, because when I was younger and I didn't feel like I had the potential, I also lacked a certain level of confidence that I wasn't quite sure what my potential was really going to be. But I also know I was pretty lazy. Now, not on purpose. I wasn't lazy on purpose. I just didn't understand what hard work really meant. Because when you're young, sometimes when you put a certain amount of effort and then you're still going out and doing all the other things that you like to do, you think you worked hard. But that's not the case. I mean, sometimes in order for you to get ahead, that it means that you got to spend that extra time. You can't just go with the average. You have to put in a lot more than what's required to be above average. And that makes sense, right? If you put in the average amount of work, you get average results. You put them above the average work, then you're going to get above average results, as long as you're doing it consistently. So I didn't realize what that really meant. Now, the right way to approach it is to think about where you want to be in life. What are you really trying to accomplish in your life? And how, by acquiring a new skill set, how are you going to use that skill set to grow yourself or to be able to improve yourself in some way? And by the way, that doesn't have to be from a professional standpoint. It can be purely from the perspective of accomplishing something. Because as we learn things and we accomplish things, that is what builds our confidence, because over time you may feel you work on something. Just think about like a project that you may do at home. Let's say that if you're married like me and your wife wants you to put a backsplash in your kitchen. I haven't done it before, and I really didn't want to do it because I really felt it was going to be a hassle and it would take me away from sketching. But I had to do it. But at the end of the day, after we got it done and spent all that time and headache finishing it up, I felt really good because, one, we saved a lot of money by doing it ourselves. And it didn't come out too bad. It actually came out really, really well. So at the end of the day, I felt pretty good about it because even though it was a lot of work for me. And anytime you do something you're not used to, there's that fear factor of completely messing it up. And then trying to figure out if you mess it up, well, what are you going to have to do? You're going to take it all down. But I just made sure that I spent so much time up front doing my homework before I did it that I was making sure that I was planning for some sort of success in the end. And it turned out really good. So again, it was painful. I knew it was going to be a lot of work, but I prepared my mind to be able to do it. And I didn't expect myself to be as good as a lot of other people who've been doing this a long time. I expected that you know what, I'm not going to be as great as these guys. I'm not going to be as fast and efficient as these other guys. But it's okay because I'm trying. And as long as I try and I get the job done, I'm going to feel good about it. Now, all that said and done, I'm never going to do a backsplash again, ever. So getting back to what we said earlier, when we start to look at other people's work and we get inspired, there's a fine line between getting inspired and getting intimidated. You have to look at it as, you know what, this is really inspiring me to bring up my A game. But you have to realize that when you're trying to do that, it has to happen in a step-by-step process, which means you set out some little goals and you just build on those little goals because you want to build your confidence. If you look at some guy that's a complete genius at drawing, or he's just phenomenal, the first thing you're going to do is that you're going to set yourself for complete failure. Now, there's certain things that you can feel good about failing and learn from them, but this isn't one of them. Setting your bar up high for somebody looking at some guy's work where they've been doing it for 5 to 10 to 15 years and expecting that as soon as you put that pen on the paper that you're going to be Leonardo da Vinci, it just doesn't happen. It has to be built over time. You got to practice. But in order to build your confidence in doing that, you can set yourself smaller goals. Set the smaller goals and set up the stage for your success. Because as you start building those smaller goals, you just do a little by little and you'll see improvement. And that is the main thing. You want to be able to measure your improvement. As long as you have improvement, then you're learning something. And as long as you're learning something, you can progress. So that's the real takeaway here in building your confidence when you're sketching and drawing. Now, the part of being able to set up your goals, in order for you to set up your goals, I should say, is to ensure that you're able to control your negative feelings. Control your mind. That's a very difficult thing because sometimes your mind is racing and rushing to negative feelings as you're starting to work on something and you're not getting the results because you get frustrated and stuff. So that part of it is really difficult. It's difficult for everybody. So I understand how that can be a challenge for a lot of people. So you have to learn how to cultivate a controlled way of thinking. Managing your thoughts and understanding exactly what it is that you're trying to accomplish, which is why we're talking about those goals earlier. What is your end game? What is your task? And anytime you start feeling bad about not being able to accomplish something, I think you need to really go back and think about the things you have learned in the past and how you were able to learn things and how you were able to get good at something. People are always good at something. So it's always good to rationalize it from that standpoint and say, well, how did I get good at something? Is it because I practiced doing it and I did it and I enjoyed going through that process? So you have to kind of remember it that way. And I think the other thing is that we live in a very rapid world where information is constantly thrown at us. And you're always expecting to be able to learn things on the fly. And though it's kind of true that you can learn a lot of things on the fly, there are so many avenues now on the internet for you to be able to learn a lot of different things, and online courses, YouTube, all this stuff, my videos on drawing. But the main thing that I really want to get people to understand is that with all this information also comes a lot of distractions, and that as long as you have those web pages up, then you can get very distracted, and it takes you away from the time that you're supposed to spend accomplishing your task and making sure that you're sticking to your timeline and sticking to accomplishing your goals. So that's really very important for you to do, is to be able to manage your time, get rid of those negative thoughts, and to be able to stick to the goal. And then also recognize the fact that you're not going to be able to get to the point where you want to be the next day. That just does not happen. But what does happen is that as you go through it for a few days, you get used to the routine. And as long as you have a routine and you have a rhythm of being able to apply and act on something, you're not going to feel so bad about not getting the result. because you're getting those small wins. You're winning those smaller battles. And as you win those smaller battles in sketching and drawing, maybe you just get over that little bit of a hump. Maybe just as you were going through that perspective, you just didn't quite understand it. But you know what? You practice that 2-point perspective even with something as simple as a box. And then the next day you're like, holy cow. All of a sudden, bam, I get it. I get it. And that's the beauty about building your confidence, is that it happens over time. And as you secure those little wins, it's going to be like magic. And I tell you something else. You'd never know you'd be so happy about drawing a box of perspective. You're going to be like, I drew a box of perspective. Yes. Yes. Now, speaking of confidence, I'm going to go back and look at some of the artists that really inspire me and flush my drawings down the toilet. That's a wrap on Driven to Draw. Just a couple things before you go. One, if you enjoyed this episode and found it useful, let me know your thoughts and provide me some feedback on iTunes. Just click on the link below on the show notes. I would sincerely appreciate it. It would mean so much to me. The second thing is, remember that I do believe in you. You can be creative if you set your mind to it. All you need to do is just try. Just creating a sketch every single day, spending 10-15 minutes a day, you're going to see your skills grow exponentially. Take that action. Peace out. I'll see you folks next time on Driven to Draw. Have a good one.